In the heart of London, the Harrowmoor Museum of Antiquities stood tall, its Gothic arches and gargoyle statues casting eerie shadows under the misty glow of streetlights. Among its many exhibits, Egyptian relics, medieval artifacts, and ancient manuscripts, one item stood apart: a mirror. It was kept in a dimly lit hall, its frame blackened with age, carved with grotesque figures that seemed to shift when no one was looking. There was no plaque, no history, no recorded origin. But visitors who stood before it too long vanished. In 1987, Margaret Holloway, a historian studying the artifact, noticed something unsettling. Her reflection blinked, but she hadn't. The museum's air turned thick and cold. Her skin prickled with unease. 3 days later, Margaret was gone. Her apartment remained untouched. No sign of forced entry, no struggle, just a single mirror in her bedroom, shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. She was never seen again. Over the years, more disappeared. Tourists, researchers, even security guards. All had one thing in common. They had stared into the mirror, and 3 days later, they were gone. In their homes, mirrors cracked at exactly midnight. Arthur Bellamy, a thin, frail researcher, had spent decades tracking the mirror. He visited the museum, his pale fingers trembling as he pointed to the glass. "This mirror does not reflect you," he whispered. "It takes you." Security guard Daniel Wren had been inspecting the hall one night. The CCTV captured everything. Daniel stood before the mirror, staring at his reflection. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his reflection moved first. It turned its head before Daniel did. Its eyes were wrong, hollow, black pits filled with something unnatural. Daniel stumbled backward, but his reflection remained perfectly still, grinning. Then the footage cut to black. 3 days later, Daniel vanished. Arthur Bellamy demanded the exhibit be sealed. The museum refused. So, he returned at night. Alone, he stood before the mirror, watching his pale reflection ripple like water. Then it spoke. "You should not be here, Arthur." Arthur's breath caught. "You remember me?" he whispered. The voice laughed, low and hollow. "We have always been watching you." Arthur stepped back, heart pounding. The room grew colder, his breath frosting in the air. Then his reflection did not move with him. It reached forward instead. Arthur turned to run, but the mirror cracked on the inside. A blackened hand pressed against the glass, and then it pulled him in. The museum found Arthur's coat and shoes in front of the mirror the next morning, but he was gone. Dr. Evelyn Carter, a paranormal researcher, begged for one chance to test a theory. That night, she placed a motion sensor camera in front of the mirror. At midnight, the glass darkened. Faces appeared in the glass, dozens of them, mouths moving in silent screams, their hands pressed against the glass, clawing for escape. Then they were gone. Evelyn watched the footage in horror. The museum board ordered the mirror destroyed. That night, Evelyn and a team of workers prepared to smash it. The lights flickered, the mirror's surface rippled, and then their reflections moved on their own. The reflections stepped forward. They were not human. Their eyes were black voids, their skin gray and stretched too thin. One of them, Arthur Bellamy, smiled.
"Come inside."
The glass shattered outward, and they attacked. By morning, the museum was empty. No bodies, no traces. Only the mirror remained, its surface perfectly smooth. And if you looked closely, new faces stared back.